Thanks everyone for joining today. If you're here, it might mean that you're trying to wrap your head around the mechanism in Advanced Steel for creating our drawings, or possibly you're wanting to build upon what you've already done. Hopefully this webcast will help. Here is the agenda for today. We're going to start with an out-of-box drawing using one of the drawing processes. And we're going to take a look at that drawing in order to determine what drawing styles are used whenever a drawing process gets run. Once we determine that, we will use that style to create a new one and then make some changes to it. We'll also create a new labeling strategy, and I'll talk more about that when the time comes. After that, we'll set up our new drawing style and get it connected to the drawing process. And I'll talk about how those are all linked together here in just a moment. Once we've got that done, then we'll use the new process. And we'll talk about some ways to put some finishing touches on that after we get it up and running. All right, let's have a look at the overall workflow of a drawing process. When you run one of the drawing processes, a number of tasks take place in a sequence. First, the main step gets called. And this step contains all of the settings that are involved. The first setting of the main step is the step definition. This setting tells us what model objects will be the focal point of the drawing. The next setting is the detailed drawing or drawings. I'll be referring to this section as the file name selector, since that's what the actual setting is called. And it is used to wrap the drawings together and then produce that drawing file. This setting also determines which prototype will be used. The prototype is the template file that contains the title block and any lists that are needed, such as the bill of materials, bolt lists, cut lists, and things like that. This setting also controls the format of the file name for the drawing. The next setting dictates the scales that will be available for each of the views produced. And after that, the process will call the drawing style. These are the mappings that make the connection. So they're the mappings between all the objects that you want on your drawing and the drawing style. The drawing style contains the specifics for each view that will get created. This particular setting is called detail style maps. And finally, there is a slot for additional steps. These are here for any extra views or details that need to be part of a drawing, but they're not included in the main step. We will not be covering this one today. All right. So due to the detail style maps, and that's what makes the connection to a drawing style, let's look at what happens underneath the drawing style. So after the process makes its calls, it runs the drawing styles from the detail style maps, and the drawing styles will then produce all of the settings for the individual views, such as the top, the front, or the right, etc., how they will be arranged on the drawing, how each view will be dimensioned, which parts will be labeled, the scale of each view, the view titles that are underneath each view, as well as all of the details. When the drawing style gets called by the drawing process, the styles set the view up, then they access the settings underneath each of the view definitions, the object presentation, and the dimensions. So let's look at those. So we just are branching down a little further underneath one of the out-of-box styles here. The view definition is the top container for the rest of the settings. So in the same way that the drawing process itself is a container full of settings, the drawing style is also a container. Underneath that container is another container for the view definitions. And each of these view definitions will get its own name. So a top view will be one definition. A front view will be a completely different definition with all its own settings. Underneath each view name, there is a setting for the view direction and how it will be clipped. The next setting is the object presentation and labeling, which is where we go to set things like the tags for each part in an assembly. The setting also controls the appearance of the line work that's in a view, such as solid versus hidden versus dashed, etc. It also controls the labeling, and anything having to do with labeling is stored under a labeling strategy. This controls the information shown along with the leader appearance, the format, what the font might look like, what's actually in the label, what information do you want that label to present. And we'll be looking at this a little closer today. The last setting here is for the dimensions. So the dimension settings are a container of their own. Anything having to do with those are stored under a dimension request. So if you're thinking about labels or your notes and your leaders, you'll be going into labeling strategies. Anything dimensions will be controlled underneath a dimension request. So a drawing process calls a drawing style. The style calls the views call the labels and the dimensions, arranges them, then sends them back to the drawing process, and the process adds the prototype or the title block along with the bill of materials and other information. If all of these settings are done to your specification, you'll have an automated drawing with just a few button clicks. The challenge here is these settings are vast and deep. Any one of you that have been into the process manager or the drawing style manager, you may already know this, so I won't sugarcoat this. It may take some time to get these settings the way that you want, which means there is going to be some upfront setup. But once it's done, the drawings will create themselves and to your company standard. Okay, let's take a look at today's example. You're going to see this drawing created in a few moments. At a glance, you might think it looks fine. However, we're all detailers here, and because of that, we always need to look closer. We need to look down to the period. So let's take a closer look at the views that are on that particular drawing. It does have some labels. It's got some dimensions. It's got a view title. Graphics look okay. But there's one item that was not labeled, and it happens to be the main part in this assembly. That's the first thing. So here's our labels for all the beams that are in this assembly, except for one. And we would like to have everything be labeled, or at least what we want to be labeled. So there's the first thing. The second thing, after taking a closer look at the bill of materials that came from this prototype, one of the beams is listed twice. and the mark is different, or the label, if you will. That's the main part. For some reason, it's shown in the bill of materials 2 times, even though there's only one of them in the assembly. And so we want to fix both of those things here. We want that mark to look like the others. So if the other beams have a B1000 type of mark, we'd like that part to have the same type of label. And we also don't want it duplicated in the bill of materials. The third thing is down in the title block. I noticed that filled in some project information, and now I've got an attribute that is overlapping some text in the title block area, and I'd like to do something about that drawing number. It's just the number that was spit out when I ran the drawing process. It could be a 1, it could be a 2, it could be 28, depending on how many times I ran the process. And so I'd like to get control over that. So those are the 3 things that we are going to address in today's example. Okay. So for the first part of the demonstration here, I'm going to select the main part to get started, and we're just going to run the out-of-box process. So I'm just going to go select it from the list. It is a selected assembly, so I'm going into the 5 category here, and I'm going to use the one called Selected Assemblies, Page Full, ANSI D. Now I'm just going to click Use here. I'll accept the defaults for the number. Once that's complete, I'll go to the Document Manager and open the drawing. And here's the same drawing that you saw just a moment ago. There it is. And a closer look shows there's no label on the main part. The bill of materials, that main part is listed twice, also has a different mark, and the title block needs to be cleaned up. So the only thing we need to do here is determine which drawing styles were used to create the views. To do that, you'll locate the green boundary that surrounds all of the views. Be careful here because each view has its own boundary. Here in the details, you'll see the view requests in the top pane. And in the bottom pane, you'll see the name of the drawing style. And we found out what we need, so we can close the drawing, and we will delete it from the Document Manager since we are going to be recreating this during our testing. So it doesn't matter whether we save it here, and we do have to delete it from the Document Manager in order to recreate a drawing of this assembly. All right, so that's the first step. We know what we need to know. And let's start our custom drawing style. So now we're going to go into the Drawing Style Manager. We're going to go under the User branch, and we're just going to take a look at that style. Now, the name of it was 5 UNC. So we're going to go underneath the 5 category. There it is. It's got 2 views that are being requested, the top and the front. When we look at the settings underneath, the object presentation and labeling has the same name, 5 UNC, so we're going to focus on that. That's one of the things we'll need to change. And if we go to the view properties, you'll see the scale that was used for each of those views. Now we're going to duplicate this drawing style. So we'll go back up to the top of that branch. And while we're at it, let's create a new category. We're going to go up to the User branch to create this. We'll just call it Custom. This is for organizational purposes. So when we duplicate our style, we're going to store it under that new branch. So here I'm just going to right click on the style, give it a new name. And I like to add custom to the end of these names. This makes them stand out in the tree on the left. And once the style is copied, I'll drag it to the custom branch. Notice that the new custom style is still using the original view request though. So we'll need to make a copy of each of those as well. I'll start with the front. Next to object presentation, next to the view name, I'm just going to click new, give it a new name. So I'm keeping the same name as the original and just adding custom to the back end. You'll see me do that quite a bit. Now that I've created the view name, I'm going to go to Object Presentation and click on Set. And this right here is why the main part wasn't labeled, because the labeling is turned off for that object type. But if I try to change it here, and I'm going to get a notice that I'm about to modify the original set of rules. So we have to create a new one for the object presentation. Once we create this new object presentation, now I can change the labeling that's used for the main part. In this case, it's the one called MP Beam. And here we can choose an out-of-box label, mark with leader. That's the one that's being used for all of the other parts. So all we got to do is plug it in here. And I'll click apply to save the changes so far. And then I'll use the back button just to go back one screen. To finish this view request, I'm going to go to the view properties and set the scale, making it a little bit bigger just so it fills out the drawing a little better. And that's it for the new front view. Let's do the top. Since I'm here, I'll try to change the scale, but again, I get notified that I'm about to change the out-of-box one. So I'm going to cancel, and I'll reset that scale. Looks like it didn't change back, so I'll reset it, and then go back to the view definition and create a new view name. Always start at the top. Now I'm ready to make a new object presentation, but this time I can select it from the list because we already created it. So I'll choose 5UNC Custom here, and in the properties, there you see the change that we made before. So once you create one, you can then start using it in other view definitions. And lastly, I'll update the scale. And we are done with the drawing style for now. Let's open the Drawing Process Manager and get our new style plugged in. Like before, I'll create a custom category to store the changes. This category is under Drawing Processes. Instead of dragging this one, then I can right-click and choose Properties to move it in once I duplicate it. So first thing, we do need to duplicate the drawing process that we want to use. And this is done in the same manner as the drawing style. So the last one, I drag and dropped it into the custom category. This time, I'll right click and choose properties, and then you can change the category. So 2 ways to organize your styles and your processes. That custom category will also show up under the process steps grouping on the left. So we got the process duplicated. Let's duplicate the main step for that process. We'll do this in the same manner as before. Click on New Step, name it, and while you're at it, place it in the custom category. Next, go down to the Detail Style Map and click Properties on the right. Look for the style called 5UNC. That's the original one. That's the one we're going to replace. Be careful here, though. You don't want to change it yet. You have to create a new detail style map first. So if you look at the top, it's the original name. So we're going to click New Step. And we're going to duplicate the detail style map like everything else. Now we can change the drawing style right there. There's our custom category for the drawing styles. And that's it. So those are the 3 things. We changed the process, then the main step, and then the detail style map. Okay, let's try it out. Remember to select the main part in the model first, and then go back into the Drawing Process Manager. The custom process will still be selected from before, so all you have to do is click Use. We'll stick with the defaults for now. Just click OK. And then go to the Document Manager and open the drawing. As you can see here, we have an automatic label for the main part like the others. Now, let's take a closer look at this label. It's a bit close to the end of the beams. And the leader appears short or squeezed, so may not be exactly what you want. So we're going to close the drawing and go back to the Drawing Style Manager and see what we can do. Now, to save time from here, you won't see me delete the drawing from the Document Manager anymore, but that step does have to be done if you're going to recreate an assembly drawing. You'll get a message from Advance Steel that the assembly's already been detailed, and the drawing process will die right there. So, but just to save time here, I only showed you the one time, but just remember, each time we leave a drawing for this exercise, you will need to delete that drawing from the Document Manager before you go make your changes and use it again. All right. Back in the Drawing Style Manager, go to Labeling Strategies. The strategy we're using right now is called Mark with Leader. We need to look at the Arranger control. In here, there will be a list of arrangement strategies at the top. And after some trial and error, I found that the one called top or bottom, 100%, is pretty close to what I want. So that's the one I'm going to start with here. But be careful, don't change this setting yet, because we need to duplicate the overall labeling strategy first. So we're going to click New on the labeling strategy. Then we can choose a different arrangement strategy from the list. We can do that down here at the bottom of the labeling strategy. It's the last setting. Or you can choose arrangement control on the left and then select it from the list at the top if you want. It's the same setting. So now that we have a new labeling strategy, it has to be added to the drawing style. So we'll go back to the Drawing Styles tab. And then we'll choose from one of our custom view requests. Go into Object Presentation. And we'll swap out Mark with Leader with our new one. From here, it's okay to get the modification because we're updating our custom style and not an original. All right, let's try the drawing process again. Okay, we're getting a little closer. Our label is moved now. It's in the center of the beam, but it's still just not quite right. So it's overlapping another object. The leader is still a bit short. So we'll close the drawing, remove it from the document manager, and go back into the drawing style. And back into the labeling strategy. And down into the arranger control where we were before. Under the arrangement of iteration steps is where we're headed. Before we do that, we do want to create a new arranger strategy. Then we can make our changes. We're going to increase the minimum and maximum distance here, and that will allow for more length on the leader line, and it brings the label a little further away from the objects. So this area here, that's what that controls, is how close a label can be to a beam and how far away. It's minimum and maximum. So we're going to increase each one of those so it's a little bit further away, but it can only be a maximum of 1 inch away from the object that it's labeling. So I like to think of the arrangement of iteration steps as the leader line length. That's how I've been associating that. Okay, so now that we've got that change taken care of, let's try the drawing process again. Remember to select the main part first. Also, while we're at it here, we are going to set the option to make sure that the label will not overlap other objects. And there you go. The label's more centered and it has a better leader now. The last thing to do here is to plug in the new labeling strategy to the other objects. They still have a short leader. The label is more towards the end of the beam. We'd like it to be more centered. So back into the drawing style one more time. While I'm still in the arrangement strategy though, I'm going to update the name so that the measurements in the name there coincide with what we did for the minimum and maximum distance. Now we'll go back to Objects Presentation. That's back in the drawing style. And anywhere I see the original Mark with Leader in the labeling column, I'm going to replace it with our new custom Mark with Leader. And we'll accept the confirm modification dialog for each of these because we're modifying our custom style now. So it's okay. And another run of the drawing process should show the new labels for all objects. All right. And there you go. So now we've got our labels updated. Lastly, let's take care of the title block and the bill of materials. All right, this time I'm going to select the main part ahead of time because we're going back into the Drawing Process Manager. And we're going to make our changes and then go ahead and run it from there. Next to the file name selector, I'm going to click Properties. Again, I'll need to create a new one before making any changes. The new button in this case is on the left in the dialog. Here I'm going to fill in the name of my prototype, the drawing that has my title block in it. And while I'm at it, I'll also update the file name. I'm going to change that prefix. And I'm pretending that I use a different standard. So instead of the drawing saying assemblies sheet and then the number, it'll have that prefix. And that's it. Go ahead and hit use. And this time, I'm going to set my own drawing number. Let's back up just a little bit. A little misclick on the keyboard there. Here we go. So I'm given a new drawing number here. And here's the new file. You saw the file name. It's been updated. Here's our new bill of materials. So the duplicate has been fixed, and the main part has a similar label as the other parts in the assembly. The title block, there's our new number, and the overlapping text that we saw in the beginning has been fixed. All right, so that's a drawing we can save. And that is our new drawing style connected to our new drawing process. Okay, that was quite a few steps there, so let's review what we did. We started with an out-of-box drawing process. We reviewed the drawing, determined which drawing styles were used. We did that by double-clicking on the boundary box for all views. Based on that, we created a new drawing style, as well as new view requests that are stored underneath it. After we created the new view requests, we created a new object presentation. And under there is where we made our first actual change. And that was to plug in a label for the main part. After that, we created a new labeling strategy to incorporate the rest of the changes, the ones we made for the leader, as well as where the label was positioned in the view. Once we created our new custom labeling strategy, we swapped it into the objects presentation. So that's a review of the steps for the drawing style. Let's review the changes we made to the drawing process. Once the style was ready, we went to the drawing process manager. We duplicated the main step, as well as the overall process. From there, we mapped in our new drawing style, which is done under the detail style map. So just remember, for each level that you're at, you want to duplicate that before you make any changes underneath it. So once we created a new detail style map, and we plugged in our new drawing style, and then we plugged the style map into the main step. And the last thing we did was we duplicated the file name selector and replaced the prototype file. And all you do is type in the name of that drawing. And we also changed the format for the file name by updating the prefix that sits out front of the number. Now, I know that's a lot to digest, at least in my opinion it is. And we're just talking about one change or two changes of all of the possible changes that would need to be made. And remember, in the beginning, I did mention that the settings in the Drawing Style Manager, they are very vast and very deep. I feel your pain if you are one of those that is feeling that when it comes to the drawing settings. So I want to give you a few tips. First and foremost, please take your time. I know that's hard to do given how busy your days may be, deadlines and so forth, but whenever you can, this is critical. You might have to recreate the same drawing multiple times in order to test it out and find out where the settings are, where they're located in the manager dialogues, right? First, we have to find the settings. Once you find them, getting them to work it's a downhill ride from there. And that's what I've discovered is just locating the setting that you want to change. That's where you need to take your time, but it will also take time. Along with that, whatever patience you can have, the better. All right, now as you saw that I was in and out of the settings quite a few times while creating the drawing. I I did that just so I could focus on the one or two settings instead of having to try and watch all of my settings behave together. So I think of this as peeling back the onion. Start with the view request, get that going before you go any deeper. Once it works, then go to the next layer of the onion. And also remember to duplicate each one of those sub settings before you make any changes. That way you can preserve the out of box, and you have something to fall back on if you decide to sometimes start over and things like that. But whenever you can, please avoid changing the out of box settings. And that's why I also make that custom category whenever I can, or some other category. You don't have to call it custom. You can give it your company name if you want, but just make your own category to keep your changes separate from the out of box, because it probably won't take long for those to get lost. You'll just have trouble seeing them in the list that runs down the left side of both of those, of that dialog. Also, or as a reminder, make sure you duplicate each level of the settings and do that before you make your changes. And lastly, be thoughtful of the names that you use when you're creating your new styles and all of the sub settings. This will help ensure that they're easy to find later. I found that if I tack on the word custom, for example, to the end of my file names, but keep the rest of the file name the original, that tells me which style I started with. But then with custom sticking out on the right side like that, it's easy to see in that list. So however you decide to sort, my thought here is just think of some way to name so they stand out for you.